Hello, everybody. I am so excited to introduce Jill Lauren of Whole Phonics as part of our Dyslexia Awareness Month presentation series. Jill Lauren has a BA and MA in Learning Disabilities from Northwestern University. She has been teaching dyslexic students of all ages for over 30 years. Known as an expert in the area of reading and writing, Jill has trained teachers around the country to utilize a variety of structured, multisensory approaches to the instruction of reading and written language. She is the founder of a new structured literacy program, which I have a book from. Here's the front of it, Whole Phonics, which includes engaging decodable text for beginning readers. Jill is also the author of That's Like Me and Succeeding with LD. And I am so thrilled that Jill is here, because those of you who are familiar with our Road to Decode program know that this series is one of the most popular and with parents and librarians. And I'm just so thrilled she's here to tell everybody more about her wonderful work.
And I'm excited to be able to speak to librarians, parents, teachers, anyone who's joined us to discuss what it looks like to share decodable text with others. So a full understanding of what really comprises decodable text will be helpful. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be discussing how to share decodable text with parents, librarians, with each other, with other teachers. And truly, if you understand the many components of what makes for good decodable text, it'll make you both better at being able to explain why it's important, but also a better consumer of what kind of decodable text is most appropriate for your patrons, your students. And I think we'll start by just talking about the word decodable, because inside the word decodable is a code, right? And I'm going to ask a question. If I were to give you a secret code, which I'm going to do today, and if I told you that this code, the secret code, has an 85% chance of success, I'm pretty sure you'd say, I'll take it. So this secret code, which we're talking about, is the secret code to learning how to read, and it's called the alphabetic principle. The alphabetic principle is the understanding that there are systematic and predictable relationships between written letters and spoken sounds. And you're going to teach it to kids. You know, the question is, how can they learn this code? And the answer is that phonics instruction helps children learn the relationships between the letters of written language and the sounds of spoken language. You have it. So let's take a deeper look at what is phonics instruction. Here are 2 pages from the book that Marion had held up. This is from Zach's Pal. And what you see is very simple words, okay? But the simplicity of the words, these one-syllable words, there's more to it than that. This very first book contains only words that have the short A sound in them, in terms of the 85% of the words that are part of the secret code, this code, our alphabetic principle. We really start by teaching kids how to read with just the consonant sounds, which a lot of them learn in pre-K and kindergarten, and one vowel sound. And we teach them actually how to sound out these words through a blending process. And we're only in the beginning focused on short A, because the kids who are learning how to read using a phonics approach will need to learn the code really one sound at a time. We don't read these words in the beginning as whole words. Kids in the beginning are doing a lot of sounding out. So teachers have already taught kids in best case scenario what sounding out looks like. And if you can see my little cursor, you'll see me on Zach. And the way we do this is z, ah, and then we blend it, Zach. That's what phonetic decodable text allows a child to do. We've taught them the sounds, we've taught them how to blend, and now we're giving them the text to marry these skills and bring them together so that they can sound out the words, so that they learn how to read basically on their own, that they are learning the code. It's our job as teachers to basically teach them that code, okay? So z, ak, zak, then s, at, sat. In the beginning, there's a heck of a lot of sounding out. It's appropriate. We want them to do that. Now we see let's talk about that 15% that are not phonetically controlled words. Now we have on here, which actually happens to be a decodable word, but in the beginning, I'm not teaching them the ah sound because I don't want to confuse them with too many sounds. I'm just teaching them to recognize this word as a high frequency word, which it also is, on. So they're going to have learned on and the, for example. Let's focus on that one because it's really one of the most common high frequency, or sometimes people call them sight words, that you can that you come across. So the kids will have learned those words specifically before they read this text. They'll learn strategies for how to read these high frequency words. Typically, the strategy involves saying the letter names because they can't sound out the words. So I teach my students to tap this down their arm, T-H-E, the. Those words are taught prior to reading. So before a child reads this kind of text, they are going to have learned their consonant sounds, the vowel sound for short A. They'll have learned the sight words that are the high frequency sight words that are being introduced. And they'll have, done enough activities so those words will start to be memorized, which is what we want to happen with that 15%. And now, basically, when I put decodable text in front of a student, I can say to them when they look at me and they say, "What's that word?" I can tell them either sound it out or tap it down your arm. And they know that that means either sounding out like z, ak, zak, or tapping it down their arm when it's a high frequency word with letter names, T-H-E, the. Okay, so I want you to understand both what decodable text looks like, but also when kids are learning how to read, there are strategies that they're employing to read the book that is very different than just asking them to memorize words. It's the sounding out that actually builds the brain's reading pathways. Here's what happens. This is actually book either 8 or 9 in this series. And you'll see, we now are introducing this, in this book, we're introducing the short O sound, all right? But we're also still reviewing short A. There's 2 words with the short A, Zax and Van. We're reviewing short I, big, because those were taught prior. Good decodable text builds on all the sounds that have been already taught in sequence because you want to keep reviewing the code. Sounds simple, right? So the big question is, why aren't libraries bursting with decodable text? It's complicated. We've basically, in the field of reading, had, unfortunately, 40 years of what they call the reading wars. And starting in about the 1970s, there are different philosophies about how to teach reading. A philosophy known as whole language became super popular. So in the whole language world, there's this idea that children learn to read as naturally as they learn to speak. We don't teach children how to speak, they pick it up. That's not the case with reading. Reading is a man-made convention. In the whole language community, there's a different methodology with regards to how to teach children how to figure out words. And there's a pretty big emphasis on using picture cues to help them learn how to read. But the pictures are not teaching us the code. And finally, children should use the first sound of a word and guess based on context. So there's this idea that if you bring logic to learning how to read and the first sound, you'll figure it out. But if you think about it, as reading becomes more and more complex, it becomes virtually impossible, especially if you're reading about information that you've never heard about. It would be impossible to guess that word. And so the whole language movement has really taken hold, and there's been controversy about whether or not we should be teaching how to read versus using whole language, or what we call structured literacy. And structured literacy is what I'm talking about, this need to directly teach the code, and we do that through decodable text in the beginning reading years. And so in structured literacy, children must be directly taught the alphabetic code of our written language and how it corresponds to spoken language. And this instruction must be carefully sequenced, which is why I showed you, first we start with short A, then I showed you how 8 or 9 books later we were doing short O, but in between came the short I. There's a definite sequence that allows kids to learn one sound, then add the next, then add the next, one at a time, so they can acquire them, and it goes from their short-term memory into their long-term memory. And the other piece is that instruction should be multisensory. And for most of us, learning by seeing and hearing and touching makes everything more memorable. So that's what we mean by multisensory, using all our senses to learn the new information. So let's look a little more deeper at the difference in text structure between what would be considered a whole language text and structured literacy. How many of you remember Dick and Jane? This looks also incredibly simple, but if you look at the words on this page, there's actually no specific phonetic code that's being taught. You don't see a propensity of words with like short U, for example, or short A. I actually see a short E, short I, short U, short A, but there's no repetition to allow a child to actually learn the code. This page is not code-based. This page is basically created, these books are created based on a sight word approach, a whole language approach where more common words are included with the idea that children will memorize them, because this is not text that can easily be sounded out. Like, you can't sound out said, you can't sound out here, you can't sound out come. There's a heavy memorization load. And what happens is, in beginning reading, if we're asking kids to memorize words, just like with memorizing a string of numbers, eventually our memory taps out. It becomes too hard, which is why we teach them the code, so they have a system to figure out the words if they don't know them. Now I'm going to compare that to, this is actually level 3 of Whole Phonics, but I want you to see, even when we get to lengthier text, look at the number of words that are sound outable. So like down here, the hill is slick. We have hill, we have slick, we have whiz, we have jets. These are all words that they can sound out. And you can also see we're using new vocabulary words like slick. Even though that this is still decodable text, every single word on this page, they can either sound out or they've been taught, like this word there, this word was, this word of. Everything's been taught prior to the reading of this page. All of those specific high frequency sight words were taught. And now I've shown you the difference between the two types of text. Obviously, you know my bias because I'm here discussing decodable text. But let's look at the world of reading at large and see what the answer is to who's going to prevail with regard to this quote unquote war. So we actually have the answers. Back in 2000, Congress commissioned a panel of reading experts to go through, as it says, like 100,000 reading studies that were published since 1966, and then another 10,000 published before that time. And from this pool, the panel selected several hundred studies for its review and analysis. And what the panel found is that there's 5 main components to good reading instruction, especially for beginning readers. And these are the 5 components. So the first one is phonemic awareness, which is the ability to listen to sounds in words and be able to manipulate them. So I showed you early on that kids need to learn how to blend before they actually see words on a page. Good pre-K and K teachers will do a lot of work in this area, basically to help children like warm up their ears for listening to sounds in sequence, because that's what they're going to have to do when they look on a page and they see words in print. The panel also recommended the importance of phonics skills. That's everything we're talking about today. Decodable text is the furthering of phonics instruction. It's the actual implementation of phonics instruction. They talked about the importance of vocabulary. They talked about the importance of teaching comprehension, and they talked about the importance of teaching fluency. Decodable text depends on phonics. Now, so that's what the reading panel found. Wouldn't it be nice if we can confirm those findings by looking inside the brain? Well, we can. And we can thank Stanislas Dehaene, a French professor, for doing that. Using functional MRI studies, Professor Dehaene has done extensive brain research into this topic of how do children learn how to read. So, as he explained, the predictors of learning to read in young children are, first, how well they know phonics, the understanding of the sound systems of language. And secondly, how large is the size of their spoken vocabulary. And so if they know a large number of words, they will learn to read faster, which is why people tell parents all the time, read to your children, read to your children, read to your children. It's a way of building spoken vocabulary. Now that we know that phonics works, because we've got this large body of data from the National Reading Panel, we've got this information from the functional MRI studies, and I can tell you from experience over 30 years, I've never seen it fail. Let's take a deeper look at decodable text. We're going to discuss additional features of excellent decodable text, because not all decodable text is created equal. So first, when you are looking at various decodable texts, what you want to look for is a well-defined scope and sequence. Here's an example. This is from the Whole Phonics series. So in level 1, we're only teaching short vowels. And first comes the short A, as I said, then short I, short O, short U, short E, and you'll see as the books progress, you'll see that those sounds reappear. They build on each other. And every time you pull a different book, you'll see that it's associated with these, with this scope and sequence. So that's something important to ask for. What is the scope and sequence of the materials? Secondly, you're going to want to make sure that there's ample practice for both the sounds and high frequency words. So this is the 15th book of level 1, and there's 3 books for every short vowel. That provides the ample practice. And also you'll see that in this book, we're introducing set and go, but all of these other words will appear in this book, Jen's Web, because I know that my students need to see that word again and again and again. These are mostly the 15%, not all of them. These are the words that are more high frequency words, but a lot of them like do and are really need to be memorized. So because they can't sound them out, and I want them to see those words repeatedly so that, again, it goes into their long-term memory. Now, I'm going to show you, this is from the Flyleaf Publishing Company. They have beautiful books, color books, and what you're seeing here is as their series progresses, so does the length of text on a page. That's another strong feature of excellent decodable text. And why would we want the length of the text to increase? Well, like I said, we need to ensure that there's ample practice, that there's a chance to see the words again and again. So that means there shouldn't be more words on a page, because we're going to have the opportunity to practice all the sounds that have been taught. Secondly, as children acquire these sounds, their reading level is actually growing, and their reading stamina should grow. So yes, we want to see more words on a page. And you'll see with really strong decodable text that it increases in complexity, not just in terms of length, but also in terms of grammatical complexity as well. Now, let's talk about the features of not so excellent decodable text. The first would be a lack of adherence to a scope and sequence. There are books that are on the market that are called phonics books that contain words that are decodable, but in many cases, the kids haven't been taught the skill yet, the phonetic element. So for example, the cat sat on the mat and the mat was wet. So you could see all these short A words, but with a short E, if the child didn't know this word, they couldn't read this word. They would have to look up and ask the teacher, what's the word? And the beauty of decodable text, again, is that basically we want kids to feel like they can do it, and we are giving them the strategy to actually sound out words on their own so that they become independent readers. And then the second, that there's a lack of a storyline. So teachers often criticize, well, it doesn't always make sense, the material doesn't make sense, and then they abandon the decodable text and they abandon phonics instruction. So here's an example. The cat sat on the mat, the rat sat on a mat, the hat sat on a mat, the pad sat on a mat. You'll see some of this repetition in decodable text. And while I told you that repetition is important, it's equally important to have a storyline that makes sense. So let's dig a little deeper into features of excellent decodable text. These features actually, we've been talking about this, we saw this with the National Reading Panel. We want to find text that actually builds vocabulary. You want to look at text that builds comprehension, text that builds fluency. And by building fluency, we want to see that the text has words that the children can decode so that they can read them fluently, sound them out on their own, and then reread it so that it's an opportunity for them to then read and hear the sentence more naturally. And also, I have a strong moral obligation, in my opinion, that the books we read should contain multicultural characters. In other words, every child, when they first start to read, should see themselves in books. And that means the book should be in full color. Let's look at, we're going to actually read a story together, and we're going to read To Win at Chess. And when I'm working with students, the first thing we do is we actually look at the cover, because the cover starts to tell us a story. And so we have actually an activity called Discover the Cover, and it's getting kids to start thinking about what could be the problem in this story. And so if it's called To Win at Chess, if you've taught your children to start anticipating a problem, they're going to understand, well, that means we're going to wonder, well, who's winning at chess? So that's the beginning of a discussion with regard to using decodable text to build comprehension, okay? Which is as important as learning how to decode. And we know simple view of reading, we decode and we bring in language, and that's reading. So here's the first page. I'm just going to read this with you and discuss what makes the features that we've discussed in terms of vocabulary and comprehension, why this is important in terms of teaching children, why this kind of decodable text is essential for teaching children how to read. So Beth, Chan, and Thad are good at chess. They have fun with chess. They all love to win too. So all these words like TOO, the meaning of TOO has already been previously taught. Same thing with good. This particular book is focused on the CH sound and applying it. That's why we have a character named Chan They're playing chess. So you'll see that there's a lot of CH words. Okay, chess is fun for Beth and Thad. Thad tells Beth, check. Beth does not win, which is okay. Chess is fun for Thad and Chan. Chan tells Thad, check. He does not win, which is okay. So you see some of that repetition there just to help with some of the fluency. Chess is fun for Beth and Chan. Beth tells Chan, check. Chan does not win, which is not okay. Here, we already start to see what's the problem of the story. And as you're reading with students, you're actually asking them to look for the clues that indicate what the story's problem is. My students already start to notice, uh-oh, here's a clue, okay? Also, when we talk about vocabulary too, like I've pre-taught that check might mean like check it off the list, or in the case of check, it's part of playing the game. So Chan does not, and a lot of kids, little kids know how to play chess, so they actually teach me more about it than I know. So Chan gets so mad. She tells Beth, you cannot have my man. Now here too, another vocabulary opportunity, man. We know what a real man is, but in chess we call these, the pieces, a man. And again, the building of the problem. Beth said, be chill, Chan. Again, another vocabulary opportunity, another use of the CH sound. Don't fuss. Chan said, if you check my man, I will fuss. I have to win. Now, I know everybody at this point is dying to know what happens, right? But that's actually what happens. Children want to know, like, here's the problem, what happens? It's that story structure, that narrative arc of there's a problem and we want to know what happens that actually engages us as readers. And so we want our decodable text to have that story structure so that kids get engaged and they want to turn the page and they see what the fun of reading is, the fun of finding out, like, well, what's going to happen? Beth saw that Chan was so mad. Beth said, you do not have to win, Chan. It's okay if you don't win. Chan yells, it's not okay by me. Chan zips off in a huff. So now we have a problem. What are we going to do about it? Beth and Thad begin to chat. Another CH word. How can we fix this, said Beth. Thad said, let's see. We want Chan to see that chess is such fun. See all those CH words? So let's get all the kids to come and have fun with us. Chan will want to be with us. Beth and Thad have so much fun with chess. Beth wins. Then Thad wins too. It's good to win and it's okay to not win. And you can see that these are actually lessons too for kids to think about. And these kinds of lessons, these kinds of situations promote oral language discussion in the class because kids will have different views about, is it okay to win? Is it okay not to win? Beth and Thad have lots and lots of fun. All the kids run in and want to be with them. They yell, go Thad, go Beth, chess rocks. It's like my favorite page with all the different kids watching. Chan checks back. She sees that there are lots of kids. They all have fun with chess. Chan does not want to miss the fun. And I'm guessing a lot of you saw that coming. So not only does she not want to miss out, but Mel, a character from a previous book, shows up because how am I going to get the word chips in here? We brought in Mel. So Mel the chick saw the kids and wants in on the fun too. He said, chips, chips. Do you kids want me to give you chips? The kids yell, chess and chips rock. The kids get chips from Mel. Such fun. Chan does miss chess and she wants chips. You know, the chips are always a perk. Chan misses Beth and Thad too. Chan tells Thad, I want to be with my pals and have fun with chess, but will it be okay if I don't win? So you see, she's got some internal conflict. This is how deep you can go with decodable text. Thad said, chess is fun if you win. Chess can be fun if you do not win. Chan and Thad have fun at chess. Mel gives Chan chips too. Then Thad puts Chan's man in check. Tension. Thad said, I win. Okay, so here's some buildup. Kids want to know, how's this going to go? This is an engaging moment. This is big for Chan. Will she be okay? Will Chan be sad? Will Chan fuss? Thad bit his lip. We talk about what does that mean? He's a little nervous and said to Chan, did you have fun? Chan said, yes, I did want to win, but if I have fun, I win too. Chess rocks. So you can see that story literally has a beginning, a middle, and an end, conflict that needs to be resolved. This is one of the most important things that we can teach kids in addition to the phonetic code, because as I said, we want kids engaging with the book. We want them thinking about what they're reading. The purpose of reading is to bring meaning to the text. So as we said, what is good? The features of excellent decodable text: build vocabulary, build comprehension, build fluency, introduce multicultural character so that all children can see themselves in the books that they're reading. And most importantly, I'm adding a strict adherence to the phonetic scope and sequence that will build a sense of competency, which young readers need. Learning how to read is rather intimidating, and it's one of their first adventures into the world of being like the adults or like big kids. So we want them to feel success. Now it's time to discuss your library connection. What would a robust selection of decodable text contain? You can find a list of really wonderful decodable book publishers right on Teach My Kid to Read's website. There are a number of publishers, and take a look. Who are your patrons? Like, who's going to come in and ask for decodable text, potentially? And it's a sizable amount of people. It could be the parents of the 1 in 5 children who are dyslexic. It could be the parents of the 1 in 5 children from low-income communities who desperately rely on their libraries, who are reading below grade level. And it could be the parents of the 2 out of 3 children who do not score at a proficient reading level on the national assessment by the time they get to 4th grade. These are the parents who may be coming in asking, for help. And let's just take a little bit of a deeper look at what may be behind some of the questioning that parents bring to you as librarians. So these are your patrons. They may be feeling desperate. They may be embarrassed and frustrated. Children who are with their parents and are upset that they are struggling to read. And some of those parents who are asking for their kids may also be adults who are hiding the fact that they can't read. So this is an area that requires some sensitivity at times. I hope that what you'll take away is the importance of including decodable text in your library collection. And if you want to know more about anything related to either dyslexia or literacy, there's all sorts of support for librarians, including this wonderful programming page that I found on Facebook for librarians. And also, I'm going to invite everybody, you don't have to write this down quickly, but I'm going to invite everybody, if you want a list of resources, which I have actually, a full list, please email me. I'll leave this up, and I will send you this list of resources, also including citations for everything that I discussed today with you. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I'm happy to answer them now.
We've got a couple of questions if you have a few minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
What to do when already in 3rd grade with gaps on an IEP for reading and writing with direct instruction for a reading recovery teacher that's using leveled readers from F&P? Not uncommon.
Oh, boy. I almost wish that we had the librarians here to talk about leveled readers, because boy, do they have, I did a national survey of librarians who really had a lot to say about leveled readers. So the first thing I would suggest, and I don't know whether this person has the ability to do so, but if you do a phonetic inventory, meaning look to see which sounds are not stable in this child's repertoire of sounds, it will inform your decision about what kind of decodable text you could use to supplement. I don't know whether you're required to use leveled readers and you're required to use text that may or may not be decodable, but for me, without knowing the child, it's hard to answer, but do a sound inventory and see where the holes are.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is such common stuff. I mean, this is the next question too. What do you do when the child is in third grade, has dyslexia? We fought for structured literacy. The school agreed to 45 minutes a day of the Wilson reading system, but goes back to gen ed and they use balanced literacy. And there's more to the question, but I think that would be a good one to comment on because it's so common.
Well, first of all, I love that somebody's getting 45 minutes of structured literacy instruction. I think that's incredible. And I have to say from my own experience, you know, a lot of students I see starting in kindergarten and first grade, their classrooms are often balanced literacy or, you know, workshop style classrooms. And I'm doing my own, I'm teaching according to my scope and sequence, you know, this, I'm using structured literacy approaches, and my students learning how to read. And eventually we start to bring in some of the other books when I know that they are able to read those books. But keep going with what you're doing. And you may also ask the child if they're comfortable bringing the books that you're using in your structured literacy lessons into the classroom, and see if there can be some kind of accommodation or modification where that child is reading those books in the classroom as well.
It's common, but I think, you know, as word gets out about these books, whether it's driven from the public librarian or the school librarian, that will only, you know, that's only going to help things as we move forward in our slow but steady push for change.
The more people who know and the more people who actually teach structured literacy and see how it works, it's like the best aha moment you'll have as a teacher, as a librarian. We know some librarians are actually starting to do some of this work, you know, sitting down with kids and doing some instruction as well. It's an incredible moment to watch kids start to crack the code and realize that they can do it.
Well, that's it with questions. This was amazing. We have great comments, and I'm so glad we got this out there. And I'm going to end now, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.